Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Today's guest is a South African ultra distance triathlete who is a 2016 Ultraman Florida champion and a 2017 Ultraman world champion, and I believe is currently training for the 2023 Ultraman World Championship. Welcome, Rob Gray. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure being here.
It's great to have you on the show. And so, we love to talk about endurance and the endurance mindset on our podcast. And so I have to ask you, Rob, tell me how your endurance mindset has impacted your life unexpectedly.
I think it probably goes back to like one of the very first races where I realized that sort of these ultra endurance things was a thing that I was good at. And at the time I was racing cross country mountain bikes, and these races are usually about 90 minutes long, maybe 2 hours. And there was this event in England. I was living in England at the time, and there was this event in Bristol called the Bristol Bike Fest, and they had this 12-hour race format, which at the time just seemed crazy to me. So I was intrigued by this. And the way that it worked was it was basically a 3-mile loop in the woods, and you would start, I think we started at about 3 p.m. or something, and you would just keep going until 3 a.m. or something like that. And so a lot of it was in the dark. And I started off, and in these cross country races, I would never win them, right? I would come maybe top 10. If I got ninth place, that was a good deal for me. So start off this race, and I'm sort of hanging in 15th, 14th place. Then about 5 hours in, I start moving up the ranks. I'm sort of in 8th or 9th place. And then at like 8 hours, all these guys just start dropping off like flies, and I'm just moving up. And it's not like I sped up. I just stayed constant. And I started, improving my place. I was probably in 3rd or 4th place. And then I just suddenly hit the depths of despair. So I was feeling great, the depths of despair. But because it was a 12-hour race, I just kept going. And, ordinarily, if I was on a training ride, I would just go, well, I'm done for the day. This is clearly a sign I've got to stop. I'm just done. And I would have stopped. But because there was this artificial construct of a race, I just kept going because I knew I had to keep going for 12 hours. And I just kept sort of plodding along for maybe another hour or so. And then all of a sudden, like this, I just snapped out of it, and I was up again. And then it was like this cycle of highs and lows that just kept on going. And it was just this pattern that continued. And that's sort of where the bug bit me. And I've noticed that pattern happen in every single really long race. You have these highs and lows. And to me, that is one of the biggest life lessons that endurance sports has taught me, is that you're going to have good times, really good times. You're going to have really bad times, but neither of those things last forever. So, when your life's on a high, know that it's not going to last forever. I see some people that everything's going their way, and they, maybe, I don't know, job wise, financially, and then they just spend their money like it's never going to end. And then something happens, they lose their job, and they didn't expect it, which is, perhaps short-sighted. Same. I have friends of mine who, have gone through really, really, really bad times. And, when you're in those really bad times, people sometimes feel like they're never going to make it out of that, and can be, really, anguishing, mentally anguishing. And if I could just provide, people, maybe there's someone listening who's going through a really, really tough time, and they just feel like there's no end in sight. And there is always an end in sight, and it always gets better. And if you're in the depths of despair, the chances that you just wait it out, and things are going to get better eventually. And that's really helped me navigate both the good times and the really tough times in my life, is knowing that none of it's going to last forever. And it's been a really great life lesson for me, and the endurance sports taught me that.
It's a great life lesson, Rob, and I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper on the on the tough times part, right? So we've got an audience member out there who's struggling, and it's tough mentally to sit there and just be optimistic that things are going to get better. Are there things that you've done sort of mentally or physically that have helped you get through that mental stuckness or that mental tough time and help you see that sort of that the light's coming?
Yeah, I think it's usually you cannot see the light coming, and the same when you're in an endurance event and you feel like you're done. You at that point in time, you don't know that you're going to get better. You don't know that things are going to improve, and all you can do is just take one step at a time. It's just one step forward, in left foot, right foot. And so when I'm in one of these endurance events and that's happening to me, that's literally all I'm telling myself. I'm not thinking about, maybe in an hour's time I'm going to feel better, or hopefully this time, hopefully this is going to end soon, and I've got faith that it's going to happen. I'm just thinking, just keep moving forward, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Take my fuel. Same in life. It's just instead of left foot, right foot. It's just day by day. Let's get through this day. Just get through this day, and it's similar to just going left foot, right foot, and eventually what you don't know when it's going to happen, but eventually you just snap out of it. And it's about trying not to overthink it. Really, it's just take it day by day, even hour by hour. If the day seems like it's too long of a time time span.
That's well said. And I find that adding some more movement into my day, if I'm going through a struggling period or a struggling day or some situation at home or at work, that just like get outside, go for a walk, go for a little run, like just get some sort of movement in your body, and it kind of at least alleviates some of the stress. Um, Thinking about from the other side, when things are going great, any mental check-ins or thought process that you go through when you say, okay, I'm recognizing that, or do you not realize how great it is when we're in that great moment? Can you talk about that end of it?
Yeah, I think when things are going really well, if I'm racing, I'm just telling myself to not overdo it, because it's so tempting if you're feeling great and you're at, I don't know, like 50 miles into an Ironman. It's really tempting just to ride harder than you should, and you feel like you absolutely feel you got so much in the tank that 4 hours later it's going to come back to bite you. And similar thing in life. Things are going really well. I really enjoy it. So I appreciate those moments, first of all. So if things are going really well, it really makes me appreciate that things are going well, and I just acknowledge that in life. And it's not like I'm worried that that the good time's going to end, but it's you're similar to how I shouldn't overbike when I'm feeling good. I don't sort of overdo things when things are going really well in life. It's not like you just go and spend money like crazy or be irresponsible or whatever things would equate to overbiking. But I still acknowledge it. When I'm in a race and things are going great, I enjoy that I'm feeling good, and I acknowledge that I'm feeling good. But I just don't overdo it. And same thing in life. Just really enjoy it, appreciate those moments for when they're happening, just because at some point it's probably going to end. So that's really what that's taught me.
Certainly. Do you have any specific examples of how you've used this endurance mindset in your family or your work life?
Yeah, I mean, this year, it was, there's been a huge amount of change for me this year, and for our family. So I was just, in terms of career, most of the jobs I've had, I've been at for quite a long time. So usually at least 5 years. Some of them, I think I worked at Microsoft for maybe 8 years, and I was at Google for 13 years. And then in March this year, I left Google, and I wasn't sure what the next step in the journey would be. And I'd always thought of, maybe I would, do a startup. Of course, I've been coaching sort of part-time for probably 10, 11, 12 years. And I decided that I would invest all my time into spending more time coaching. But at the same time, just from a financial point of view, coaching is a job. Coaching Ultraman athletes is, just from a financial point of view, very different from a full-time job at Google. And so it was quite challenging to try and figure all that out, and at the same time figure out what was the best route for the family and what we would do. And then we just decided it was probably 2 or 3 months of just sort of resetting, not really thinking too much about what was next, and just seeing what would unfold. And after about 3 months, it was starting to get a little bit more. I don't know. It just felt a little bit more dicey because there were all these tech layoffs. So the market was suddenly flooded with people with similar skill sets to mine, and all the tech companies in the industry that I'd been working in were sort of very nervous about the general economic situation in the US. And so for us, we had to decide whether we just continue, whether I would continue on the sort of career path that I'd already been on for so long, or if I'd make a completely different change and just really think about what I wanted out of life and what really motivated me and really made me feel happy with my life day to day. And I was just kind of burnt out by the whole high tech industry. And so we decided just to make a complete change, take a huge leap of faith, and literally change everything. So we waited for the kids' school year to end in May, and then we decided, let's just go live somewhere where would be just sort of a very random place to live that very specifically doesn't have any real high tech industry, and where we can really follow our passions. And so we decided just to uproot everything and move to Thailand, which is what we did. We decided that in April, basically. And then in July, we arrived in Thailand. So new school for the kids, new country. We didn't have anywhere. We didn't know where we were going to live. So we just had Airbnbs booked, like a series of Airbnbs. And we thought we'd just figure it out when we get here, because you can't really decide on a place to live if you've never really spent a lot of time there other than a vacation. So this was the sort of day by day, left foot, right foot thing. We're just like, we don't really know, but we know we're going to be following our life passions and doing things that are fulfilling personally. And we're taking a massive financial risk by doing this. We're taking a big risk by moving the kids into a completely different school system. And we just used the compass of what is really going to fulfill us, and let's not make it about money, and let's not make it about career goals or ego or anything like that. Let's just see what unfolds. And it's been quite an adventure. And for me, it's really I had no idea what I would be doing, and so of course I still have the coaching business. But one of the interesting things that happened is that one of the guys that I've been coaching for a very long time is the CEO of a manufacturing company in France and Belgium, and they make this sort of high-end kitchenware and kitchen appliances. And he needed help with expanding their business internationally, and he asked me if I would be interested in doing that. And for me, that was just a totally fascinating thing, because it's an industry I really haven't worked in at all, manufacturing, but it's something I'm really interested in, like how global manufacturing works. It's basically like a luxury goods brand. So it's real things that people use every day, which is very different. The whole world of software, I know it's real, but it's not really, it's just kind of virtual stuff, And, when I was touring the factory, these factory workers thought it was quite strange how excited I was at seeing real things being made in a production line in watching end to end how these, waffle makers and, fancy kettles and all this stuff was being made and packaged and shipped off. And it's just an area I know nothing about. But I'm learning, every single day. And for me, that's really what inspires me, is to be out of my comfort zone and learning something new, which it felt like before I really wasn't learning much. It felt like I'd been in that industry for so long, and now it feels like I'm learning something new every single day.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations. I have to ask you this question. Like, walk us through the emotions, right? There's the tactical piece of, we picked everything up and we moved. But you and your family must have gone, probably still going through, the emotional side of when this became an idea to when you actually executed it. Talk to us about how those emotions and how you handled that.
A lot of the emotions came from the unexpected things that have happened along the way. And it's similar to like when I do a race like Ultraman, it's over 3 days. You have no idea what's actually going to be in store for you, but you've got a general idea. You're going to swim, bike, and run around the big island of Hawaii. And you've got a rough idea of your strategy for doing that. But you have no idea what vehicles are going to be on the road. Like there's dogs that run across, the wind, the weather just plays complete havoc with whatever plans you did have. And this was a similar situation. Like we knew that we wanted to go do this thing, but we hadn't planned everything to the nth detail. And a lot of it you just assume with common sense is that it's going to happen. So, for example, we decided we would just sell our house in Colorado, and that would set us up for the next few years. And before we tried to sell it, we'd have realtors calling us all the time, wanting us to sell our house and saying they had people interested, even when we didn't want to sell it. And so we had assumed it would just sell quickly, and we put it on the market and assuming it would just sell within a few months. And people came around and looked, huge amount of interest, and it just didn't sell. And then eventually it got to the point where you got to decide, well, do we really drop the price on this house, or do we just sort of stick it out and try and survive, but not go below what actually makes sense for us? And so that was a very big obstacle, because you go from this place where you assumed you would be financially very stable for at least a couple of years, to starting to really worry about what's going to happen 4 months from now with the cash flow of everything. And our plan B was, we're just going to rent our house out. And then that didn't happen either. And it was, for whatever reason. And I believe that that eventually it will all turn out, for whatever reason it is that we didn't sell our house. But and for me, it in the end, it's probably a good thing. But those emotions went from, hey, we're going to go have this awesome time in Thailand and everything's going to be great, and we're just going to be living the dream for 3 years, to oh my God, are we going to actually survive the next few months? And a lot of worry and stress related to that, and trying to figure out what we're going to do. But that, for me, that stress is yes, it's a negative emotion, but it really spurs you to action to try and figure things out. And it's definitely not comfortable. And whenever I'm not comfortable, I know that I'm doing the right thing, and it's kind of forcing me to be innovative or ingenious, or coming up with some sort of plan of how we're going to survive. And so it's those are the emotions. It's living the dream to living the nightmare the next, realizing you're going to be living the nightmare unless you solve it quickly. So still now it's a lot of ups and downs just with getting settled into a new country. It's kids, new school, trying to make new friends. And even from my training, it's there's amazing training facilities here, but in reality, so we arrived in rainy season. it's hard for me to train outside some days. It's just like it rains so much. It's literally, the streets are flooded. Like you'd be running in a foot of water. So I've had to try to figure out similar things to living in Colorado and trying to train in the snow, which I never expected in Thailand. I just expected it would kind of be like Hawaii and it would be easy to train every single day. But it's a lot of unexpected things that we've had to overcome, but it makes it interesting.
Well, I think to your point, going back to racing and training and endurance, right, you've had these emotions and these feelings and these OMG stress points in that life. And so you can kind of relate, okay, this isn't as bad as when I had 3 flat tires and I dropped my chain and I, crashed my bike in the middle of a race and had to get up, bloody knees to finish. So why Thailand?
I mean, it's a place we've been on vacation a few times, and we've always loved it. Every single time we've been here, we always wanted to stay, and usually we've just tried to come up with some way of extending our vacations by a few weeks whenever we've come in the past. And so that's one reason we've been here. We like the place. The second reason is we've never seen much of Southeast Asia, and when we were living in London itself is a great city, but what makes it even greater is that it's a transportation hub. So you can be on a plane anywhere in Europe within 1.5 hours, or even the Eurostar train. So it's we got to travel Europe so much just when we were living in that hub. And we thought at some point in the future we'd maybe want to live in Singapore or something like that. But when we were looking into it, Thailand, so we're in Phuket. Phuket has great schools, so it's got many, many really good international schools. And the airport is so well connected to Southeast Asia. You can be anywhere. Bangkok's like just over an hour away. Hong Kong's 3.5 hours away. Vietnam, Cambodia are neighbors. So it's a really great hub just to be able to explore, even if it's short trips of 2, 3, 4 days, being able to explore the area. And then also I really love the ocean. So I love Colorado, but that was the only thing I didn't like, is that to get to the ocean would always be some sort of a trip. Whereas if I wanted to go to the beach, I just go to the beach. If I want to go scuba diving, we go scuba diving, and all these sort of water-based sports are literally on the doorstep now. Whereas before I'd have to figure out a trip to make those things happen. So just in terms of life passions and things I enjoy doing, I could do all those things, and they're surprisingly, the training facilities are actually incredible. Yeah, there's 50-meter pools everywhere. And in Boulder, which is, allegedly the triathlon capital of the world, there's not even a 50-meter pool that's open all year round. There's one that's open in summer, and that's it. Everything else is 25 meters or 25 yards.
Interesting. It sounds very much like Cape Town, right? Ocean,
yes.
Facilities, warm weather.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit, Rob, and I have to ask this question. What was it like being at Google for the last 13 years? I mean, talk about technology transformation and this huge entity going from, a search engine to what it is today. What was it like on the inside?
So the reason I joined, when I left Microsoft, I swore I'd never join a big company again. Then I did a few startups between Google and Microsoft, between Microsoft and Google, sorry. And I kind of got the job at Google by accident. I'd actually started my own company doing marketing, strategy consulting and stuff like that. And at the time, this was, it must have been 2009 or 2010. Google was, especially in Europe, was still quite small, and they needed help with their European marketing efforts. So I took them on as a client, and I would be in there maybe 2-3 days a week. And then things really started ramping up, and I was spending 4 days a week and then 5 days a week. And then the guy that I was doing the work for said to me, "Look, you're here every day, you may as well just join." Even though I'd sworn I'd never join a big company again, the reason I did join is because it was like a startup. So the culture and the way of working was exactly like a startup. It just didn't have any of the risks, because it was basically like having a startup with really, really, really rich parents that could bail you out if anything went wrong. So we got to do all these experiments and try new things, and you really not have to be afraid of failing at all, because the worst thing that would happen would you just can the project and do another one. And so that sort of experimentation and that sort of startup feeling was really what I loved about it and what attracted to it in the first place. And even now, like there are still pockets within Google that are like that, although for the most part, it is like another big company now. And they really put a huge effort into trying to keep that whole startup feel and startup culture. It's just when you got 100,000 plus employees, it's really, really, really difficult to do that. And inevitably, you're going to have the majority of the company struggling to be like that. But that was what was really great about the place. And the people, I would say for the most part, the people were just really, really amazing. Part of it is the way that they hire. So the hiring process has got very strict criteria, but not in the areas that most companies have. Like most companies will mainly be around the job role and your expertise and your qualifications and all that sort of stuff. And that is obviously very important at Google. But the non-negotiable aspect of a new hire is really their character and their personality and their sort of thirst, their curiousness, their curiosity, and their thirst for knowledge and improving. And when you're interviewing people, there's certain questions you ask to really try and understand what type of person they are. And they've been really successful at hiring those types of people. And that really makes a huge difference when you're sitting around and with 8 other people and you have some sort of constructive argument or even some sort of difference of opinion. It always seems very positive because you have respect for them as an individual, that they have the intelligence, they have an analytical mindset because they had to go through that recruitment process. And it really, in those difficult situations at work, that sort of high bar that they have really made a difference to the positivity you feel on a daily basis working with your colleagues. And it's that's probably the biggest asset they have, is that culture that they've somehow managed to still maintain, even though they're a huge company now.
And my next follow-up question on that is, what did your coworkers think of you and your Ultraman competing and all the training you're doing and flying off to do these races? Like, what was your coworkers' thoughts on that?
I mean, some of them, like, so when I joined Google, there's a lot of people who do stuff like that there. So like, for that's another part of the hiring process. Like, if someone doesn't do something strange in their personal life, they usually wouldn't even get hired. So you have people that are like, top in their field of violinists and concert pianists and stuff like this, or astrophysicists. That's like in their spare time. See, there's quite a breadth of individual who sort of exceeds normal sort of types of hobbies, right? So that's sort of a starting point. When I joined, I heard there was some guys, there's a 10K swim in San Francisco that they do. And I was like, man, that's crazy. Like, I'd already done Ironmans by then. I'm like, this is a 10K swim. That's just nuts. I can't believe maybe one day I'll do that. And so that's when I joined. But yeah, by the end, I think they, like, once they hear about what Ultraman is, it does sound kind of crazy when you just put the distances out there. And then, on the other hand, there are some, like, I did a world relay, a swim record with 7 of my colleagues back in 2019, where we, I don't know, we swam, I can't remember the exact distance, like over 900 kilometers in 10 days. So we set the Guinness World Record for the longest swim relay. And I mean, I thought that was kind of a crazy idea to begin with, but there was someone else who thought of doing this thing. And that was that was a logistical endeavor of note. But yeah, for the most part, they think it's a little bit nuts, but there's other people that do equally sort of extreme things.
We tend to cluster together, don't we?
Exactly.
So Rob, I'd love to know how did you get into Ultraman? Like, take us back to sort of childhood up through getting into Ultraman.
Well, I grew up in South Africa, and team sports are the big thing there. So I grew up playing rugby, and the Rugby World Cup has just happened in South Africa, won the World Cup. But you're similar to the US, I would equate it to US swim kids who are swimming when they're 6 years old and their parents take them to practice and they swim for like 2 hours at a time every single day. It was like that for rugby. So I was playing rugby from when I was 6 years old. We would have 2 practices a day at school. Like when I was 7 or 8, we would do that, 2 practices a day. And then sometimes even during the school day, if there was a period where they would have your music or a class like that, then the rugby team would go and practice again during when everyone else is doing music or drama or whatever, something like that. So sometimes we'd be practicing 3 times a day. And I played that throughout high school as well. But it's really, I was too small to do it after school because these guys are like huge. They'll be like 6'5" and like 250 pounds. And I wasn't big enough to really do it professionally or full time after that. But I did track and field, and I did swimming, and I played water polo. I played tennis a lot, but no real endurance sports. I did a little bit of 800, 400 meter running, which is probably the most painful event I've ever done in my life. 400 meters. It's I know it sounds short, but I think I'd rather run Ultraman than run a 400 meter race. And then I didn't really do many endurance sports that are super long. The seed was planted there because there's this event called the Comrades Marathon in South Africa. It's 89 kilometers, so a bit further than the Ultraman run. It's 56 miles, I think. It's between these 2 cities, and it's been going for over 100 years. And every year they would broadcast the whole day on TV. And we only had 3 TV channels, and TV would only start at 6 p.m. every day, except on the day when the Comrades Marathon was happening. We'd start at 5 a.m. and it would just be on the whole day broadcast from when I was 4 years old. I used to watch this thing. So that the seed was planted, and that sort of got me interested in endurance sports. When I moved to London in 2000, I sort of needed some sort of active hobby, and there was a forest near my house, and my friend and I had started doing mountain biking. And on weekends, we see they put on these cross country races, and because we saw them racing all the time, we thought we'd enter the races and have a go. And so did cross country mountain bike racing for a few years, and then that 12-hour race that I told you about, that happened. And then it got me thinking that because I'd swum at school, and I'd also done some track and field, I could run. I decided, well, maybe I should put all 3 together and at some point do a triathlon. So at the back of my mind, I had this idea of maybe doing a triathlon at some point. But the thing that eventually made me get into it was a sort of impulsive purchase around about Black Friday. I think it was 2009. My local bike store, who I used to buy mountain bike stuff from, sent me their Black Friday deals, and there was this beautiful, it was a felt B2 carbon fiber TT bike with zip wheels and everything, and it was marked down from, I think it was marked down from £6,000 to £2,000. It's like, oh my God, this thing's like a third of the normal price, and it just looks amazing. It's like the F1 car of bikes. I'm going to go to the store, and if it fits, I'll just buy it because it's a deal that's too good to pass up. So I went to the store, and of course the sales guy said, I've never seen a bike fit anyone better in my life. And so I bought it. So then I arrived home with this time trial bike, and my wife looks at it and she says to me, what are you doing with this thing? Like, this doesn't look like a mountain bike to me. And so I said to her, no, well, I've entered the London Triathlon. And so you're not allowed to ride mountain bikes in the London Triathlon. And this thing they were basically giving it away. And I bought this for the triathlon because that's what I need. And so that was my story. And then, of course, I had to go and enter the London Triathlon to justify my story. That's how I did it. So yeah, and they've got quite a good triathlon scene in the UK, and every weekend they have these little sprints and everything up to Olympic. But yeah, I did a whole bunch of sprints, did the London Triathlon, and then I was doing some work one day in Paris, and we were running an event, and the CEO of the events company saw my shoes, and they were running shoes with elastic laces. And so, of course, he recognized that these were used for triathlon. So he said to me, "Do you do triathlon?" I said, yeah, I've just done the London Triathlon, but I think that's probably it now. I'm not going to do any more. He said, "No, you got to do an Ironman. It's the best thing." He's a big guy. He was like 6'5" and 200 pounds. And I thought, well, if this guy can do it, and he seems to have a lot of fun doing Ironman, maybe I could do it too. And he sat down with me right then and said, "Let's enter Ironman Switzerland. Let's do it next year." And so I just entered it because this guy told me to, basically. And that was how I got into Ironman. And as soon as I did my first one, I was just so hooked. I just couldn't stop entering these things. I did Ironman Switzerland on the 10th of July. And then I did Vineman 3 weeks later. And then I did a challenge race like 6 weeks after that. And I just did so many of these things. And then I heard about Ultraman. And when you do Ironman, and it's something that was very intimidating at first, starts becoming much more familiar and much more, much less intimidating, then you start looking for what's next. And just the idea of Ultraman, and mainly the one in Hawaii where you're circumnavigating the whole island, just seemed really fascinating to me. And so that's in the back of my mind. I knew I wanted to do it one day. And then, actually, when I moved to Boulder, my neighbor, a guy named Billy Edwards, he had actually won Ultraman in Florida 1 or 2 years before I did. And so by that stage, I decided to do Florida at some point, mainly to qualify for Hawaii. And with the peer pressure of having a neighbor that actually won it really got me motivated to just get it done. And that was where Ultraman started.
What year was the first Ironman?
2011.
2011. Yeah, I did Zurich in 2015 and was going down memory road yesterday. That's why I asked. And so for those in the audience, especially if you're owning bike stores, your advertising does work, right? Send out those flyers, do a deep discount on your felt B2, and you never know whose career is going to be spurred from that. Rob, audience member wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to reach out?
So my website is robgray.org. That's robgray.org. And there's a contact button on there, and they can get my Instagram on there. There's a contact form. Instagram is Robo Ultra, like RoboCup, but instead of cup, it's Ultra. And so Instagram and just the website, that's the best place that's the best starting point, and they can get hold of me on that.
Fantastic. And we'll include those links in our show notes for sure. Rob, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I loved how we started off talking about our life lessons and the good times and the bad times and how we handle each of those, knowing that the other could be coming. And then our conversation about the decision you and your family made to make a huge change in your life. I think there's a lot of learning there for our audience members. And I asked my audience, if you got some value out of this conversation, please like our show, please subscribe, please spread Rob's message, because there is a lot of nuggets within this conversation for people to grab onto and make some impact on their life. Again, Rob, it's been awesome having you here. Good luck at the end of the month. Am I right that you're competing in the World Championships at the end of the month?
I'm doing it as a relay this year. So because I think it's the 40th anniversary of Ultraman, they opened a relay division, and my longtime crew chief, Ian Hersey, has always wanted to do Ultraman Hawaii, but he hasn't wanted to do another Ultraman to qualify for it. So he wanted to do the relay this year, and that suits me fine, because there's no ways I haven't had time to do all the training required for Ultraman at the level I need to be, which requires 25 to 30 hours a week of training. So I've just been doing the running and not even much of that. So I don't know if I'll even survive. So that I'm going to be hoping to complete it in one piece. That'll be a good result.
Well, I think that's the feeling we have every time our toe is on the starting line. It's like, have I done enough? We'll find out in the next handful of days.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. We'll keep an eye on you for that. And again, it's great having you on the show. I appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits